Hello.
Pretending to be Santa?
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
We're live.
We're live.
Oh.
Doing that fake smile.
Alright. Do we have people?
Ethan's asking how you guys are.
Hi, Ethan.
You guys staying warm?
That looks like it's gonna fall.
We're
right
good.
there. We're good. All right.
Yeah. Just can't bump it.
Yeah, we've got the coldest Christmas in 25 years coming up. So it's supposed to be in the low 50s Christmas Day, and then I believe in the 30s at night.
Look at you with the
So
trivia.
yeah, super excited about that. Get to bundle up a little bit on Christmas. That's not normal for us here in Florida. I feel sorry for some of those friends and family that I have that are dealing with some crazy snow right now. So hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody is prepared for Christmas. The shopping is done because there's only a couple days left, right? One. Well, Christmas Eve, right? There's shops open on Christmas Eve.
1.5.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully everything is done there, and everybody's ready to open up some gifts and safely spend some time with family. Again, we're on this kind of Wednesday kick, kind of sitting down with the builder as we've kind of dubbed it. Some of our ideas with this, and I'm going to go way back here a little bit. Growing up, our father used to watch This Old House all the time, like Bob Vila, all that kind of stuff, and what we feel like is somewhat missing in the tiny home space is that kind of Bob Vila, that how-to. The show was This Old House, and Bob would always travel and show different remodels and building and how they were doing things, and we feel like it's important for us as a builder to kind of explain how and why we do some things within the space. So that's kind of the idea for this. We would love for you guys to give us some more feedback on it and what you would like to hear or what you would like to see. And then we can kind of plan around explaining some of that stuff. Would you agree?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of posed a question. If you had 20 minutes with the builder, what would you ask them, or what would you want to know?
So that's kind of the premise of this, and I think we've got a subject for this week that Nikki came up with. What do we got?
Yeah, tiny home maintenance. So after the build, basically, when, how often, and what do you need to do?
Yeah, I mean, tiny home maintenance is no different than your normal home maintenance. It's going to be very important, and in some cases more important than your regular home that you may have right now, and the kind of maintenance that you do on that. And we're going to kind of explain some of that as we go through this. So where are we starting as far as maintenance?
From the ground up. So we'll start with
She cracked herself up.
we're going to start with tires and axles.
Yeah, so again, this is where maintenance is vital on these two things, because some people will be traveling with their home, and there's some things that should be done kind of pre-travel anytime you get ready to move the house. So let's start with tires. They say that the average lifespan of a trailer tire is under 5 years, and I think that's exceeding the normal wear and tear, especially if you are on the go with your tiny home. So you always want to check your tire pressure on the tire itself. It may be kind of difficult to read. It is usually kind of in smaller print on the tire, but there is a recommended PSI that the tire should be at. And we always recommend that before any type of travel that we check that. We also want to check that there's no dry rotting. Maybe you've been stationary in a specific location for a period of time. You want to make sure that there's no major dry rotting. the last thing you want to do is get out on the highway and have a major blowout and then have difficulties kind of changing that. That does happen, even with a great tire. There are sometimes some mishaps with trailer tires, so you always want to be prepared for that. But anything you can do to prevent that from happening is highly suggested. Along with tires is lug nuts, right? We want to make sure that our lug nuts on the axle, on the hub, are all properly torqued and tightened, and that we don't have any loose lug nuts. We always suggest, and typically our transporter does this on our initial transport, but we suggest from the manufacturer themselves, the actual manufacturer, they actually, that was hard to say all those words, axle and actual, that you actually stop and check the lug tightness anywhere between 50 to 100 miles within the first trip of it, so that you make sure that those lug nuts are set properly. So that's on the initial kind of brand new tiny home. You're taking it out on its maiden voyage, that you want to kind of make sure that you stop and check that.
So not every 100 miles.
Not every 100 miles, just that first. Make sure that everything's set. If anything's going to loosen up, it's going to be in that kind of time frame. So that's an important thing for those that are coming and picking up their house, from the start, right?
How do you check your torque on those lug nuts?
So, there's a couple ways you can do it. We suggest, we have an actual torque wrench that we use to make sure that they're all properly set to the right poundage. And so that would be our suggestion. That's a manufacturer's suggestion also, that you have a proper torque wrench. Now, many people have changed tires and just kind of, gave it the as much muscle as they had to kind of tighten it on there, and that's worked as well. But if you've got somebody that's super strong, you can bust the lugs. So you do want to properly make sure that they are torqued properly.
Do you use thread lock on the
No,
lugs?
you never want to use thread lock on the lugs. Why would we not want to use thread lock on the lugs? Because if we have a tire blowout, we've got to take the lug nuts off. So we don't want to use any type of locking, thread lock, or any type of Loctite on those at all.
Oh, that's good to know. What if the house plans to sit for 2 years?
So that's kind of referring to the tires. What we suggest in that scenario is one, if you are not on a concrete pad, you want to do something when you initially park the house to get the tires up and out of that those elements, right? You don't want to have the tires basically just sitting in the ground in the mud, because that can cause quite a bit of dry rotting to happen fairly quickly, with the ground moisture kind of happening, and then them sitting in the moisture and then them drying out. So that initial kind of parking should be on either some sort of gravel that will allow that moisture to siphon down through the ground, or a concrete kind of pad is the best suggestion, right? So first prevents that kind of dry rotting initially with the parking of the home. And then again, anytime you move your tiny home, now this is whether or not you're moving it 2 years because it's been sitting, or you just parked for a week and you're getting ready to go back on the road. We always suggest to check those tires, to have that kind of pre-travel checklist, and tires are at the top of that, right? The other suggestion for tires as well, if you're going to be sitting for 2 years, we suggest adding some additional jacks, basically in front and rear of the axles. And this way, if tires will have a fluctuation of air pressure if they sit for a long time. So in order to prevent the house from kind of sagging or having any type of a tire going flat and that adjusting the level of the house, we suggest keeping those that house with some additional jacks in front and rear of the axles. That's for long-term parking, where the house won't fluctuate with the fluctuation of the tires themselves.
What kind of jacks do you suggest using for that? A pneumatic jack or a?
No, just a simple screw jack is all you need for it. So just something, because it's going to stay underneath the house, especially if you're going to be parked for an extended period of time. Just a simple screw jack that'll take that weight of the house in case there is some sort of fluctuation in tire pressure.
Moving on from the tires, what about the axles?
So the axles are also really important. So in the hub of the rim, you'll have a grease hub that you are going to want to make sure that you have some proper grease in that hub. Now, the axle manufacturer recommends that anywhere between 1 year and 12,000 miles that those bearings are re-greased. So again, that's something that's going to be that is on your kind of trailer checkoff, especially if you're extended parking. You're going to want to make sure that that's there, and if you're constantly moving, you're also going to want to kind of check and make sure that you're keeping that those hubs greased. Along with that is your brake maintenance. Our trailers come with electric brakes, so you're going to want to make sure that those also, within that same kind of time period, that 1 year, 12,000 miles, that they're checked and looked at and made sure that they don't have any kind of improper wear and possibly need to be replaced.
I have a question. Certain climates, does the grease like wear out faster? Is that a weird question?
No, it's not a weird question. Not to my knowledge. That's something that I would have to kind of figure out and look at. I'm used to trailers here in Florida, and that typical manufacturing time frame is that 12,000 miles. So again, if you've gone through some inclement weather, some really bad snow, or you've gone through some things where maybe you're questioning whether or not you've got an issue with the hub or something like that, then always recommend checking it.
Do you have to do the axle maintenance if you're stationary for, say you're stationary for 2 years? Do you just have to do that every year?
No. So the only time you're going to want to do that is if the home is moving, right? So if you're stationary for 2 years, you just want to make sure that you check that before you decide to move your house.
What about exterior maintenance? So staying with the theme of being outside, how about exterior? So that whole exterior.
So we try to, in the building of our homes, we try to use as much maintenance-free or extended life products that doesn't need kind of a yearly check on your maintenance. However, this goes back to kind of what I said there in the beginning. The big difference between a residential house that's on a foundation and a tiny house is on wheels is that we could be in Florida weather for 6 months and then travel to Maine or Colorado or out even further west and be in completely different climates, which can affect the exterior of the home dramatically sometimes. Especially if you have real wood like cedar or other things like that on the exterior of your home. Those items are going to expand and contract with the differences in climate and humidity. So those kinds of homes that have that are going to want to make sure that they are checking periodically, monthly, if not every so often, making sure that their product hasn't expanded or contracted to the point where they need to, recaulk some seams, or check around the windows, make sure the caulking around the windows is good. But again, that goes with the type of product that you have on the outside. You're definitely going to want to stay up on paint. Just like your normal home. Some people paint every 5 to 10 years. The outside of your home, on a tiny home, is going to need some of that same kind of care and take. Traveling with a home, especially because it's moving, the front of the home may need a good washing after it's been delivered, and especially here in Florida, we got the love bugs and things like that. You're going to want to make sure that all that comes off and you do that proper kind of cleaning if it's moved during that time frame. But exterior maintenance is very similar to your home, your current home, except for if you are kind of moving into those other climates. You're definitely going to want to check on that.
if you've used any type of like real wood, would you want to seal it with anything, or do you just leave it like raw? Or
No, you definitely want to seal the wood, and it depends on the wood that you're using. But there's definitely some sort of sealant that you're going to want to use on a real wood product, and that also doesn't have a extended life. Most of those sealants are going to have kind of yearly, if not bi-yearly, maintenance that needs to be done on that clear coat. So it's definitely something that needs to be looked at and maintained.
what about metal? Is that something that needs to be like? Does that have a high maintenance or?
So metal actually has a very little maintenance, if any, with the exception of the style of metal. So you have exposed fastener metal, and then you have hidden fasteners, or like a standing seam style metal where all of your fasteners are behind the metal, you can't see any of the screws. With an exposed metal, there is a rubber washer that is on the screw head when you attach and do the metal roofing, that you will want to make sure that metal or that rubber washer hasn't completely dry rotted and gone away from that setting, because that is where you could get some water penetration from the outside.
We got a lot of questions about mini splits. What is the maintenance on mini splits? How often?
Yeah, so again, mini splits are your house's AC, right? If you have most everybody has AC in their home right now, and if they're in a regular foundation home, those ACs are, you have monthly filter. You're supposed to change out the filter in your home AC, and you're also supposed to have an AC technician kind of come out, do a check, make sure everything is good on your home AC. The same applies to tiny homes. These are mini splits that are used in the residential world that come with that same style of maintenance. There is a filter inside the mini split head on the inside of the house that you're going to want to expose and change, wash it out. All of this is kind of covered in the owner's manual from the AC company. However, it's something that needs to be done on a monthly basis. Also, checking your drain lines. You want to make sure, just like your regular home AC, they suggest putting specific things down your drain lines to ensure that nothing gets it clogged, because you don't want that water that's coming off the AC unit to back up into the house. So you're going to want to make sure that your AC lines are all free and clear of any kind of debris or anything like that as well. And then the outside unit, you're going to want to again make sure that the coils are free from any type of foliage. You want to make sure that there's no like maybe you have an oak tree that just shed all its leaves. You want to make sure that none of that's blocking any of the outside coil. And again, that yearly having an AC technician come out, because that can also affect your warranty on the product. If you've done zero maintenance, or if there is an issue with the mini split and somebody comes in and they look at the filter and the filter hasn't been cleaned, they can tell it hasn't been cleaned for a year, that can drastically affect the warranty on the unit as well. So staying up on those is vital.
When you're traveling, would you recommend doing anything to your outside unit before you travel?
No, we have asked our AC manufacturer about that, and they have basically said that these units are made to be outside. They're designed to be in that inclement weather. The home shouldn't be really going over 70 miles an hour, which is basically a Category 1 hurricane. And these are designed to be out in those elements in that same kind of factor. So no, there is no need, that we have been told from our manufacturer, to cover the unit in travel.
How about the hot water heater? What about maintenance on that?
So the benefit of a hot water heater in tiny homes that we typically use, we don't use tank water heaters, we use tankless water heaters, right? So the benefit of that is that we don't have this big thing taking up space within our house, and we basically have instant, if not however long our gas is going to last, we have hot water. So we could take super long showers, or some of our clients that have tubs, they can fill their whole tub up and not worry about running out of hot water, right? The negative of a tankless hot water heater is that there is, again, yearly maintenance and decalcification, another difficult word, that needs to be done on those units. Again, it will affect the warranty on the unit if those aren't done. And each manufacturer has different recommendations on how to do that maintenance on that tankless water heater. There's a couple of different ones that we use, and we make sure to give that information to our owners when they, when they get their owner's packet. But there's definitely something that needs to be done on tankless hot water heaters, definitely on a yearly basis, to ensure, depending on where you're parked. Some places have really hard water that can calcify quicker than that 1 year, and that's something that you're going to have to know basically on where you're parked, and potentially if you're working off of a well system, or if you're working on city water, they can be a little bit better. But definitely something to think about on the tankless hot water side for sure.
Any type of maintenance that you can think of for like a composting or an Incinelate toilet? Standard flush toilets, you just clean them.
Yeah, and the same thing with the composting toilets, right? Like you want to make sure that the vents are all clean. You want to make sure that it's properly cleaned, and the process of getting rid of the waste is done properly. And again, a lot of that maintenance happens within that owner's manual. There's a lot of stuff in there that's recommended for the warranty process and the warranty to be valid. So the biggest thing on those is to ensure that vent is nice and clear and there's no blockage in that vent system. Same thing with the washer and dryer, right? So you want to make sure, especially if you have a vented washer and dryer, that you are ensuring that you're taking out the lint when you're done with the load, and then making sure that vent is always open and not completely clogged, because you want to make sure that that's working properly.
It actually makes me think of something now that you bring that up, are the water tanks, like the black and gray water tanks. Like, do people need to clean those out? Or I know they clean them out when they
flush them,
but do they have to clean them out?
Yeah, so it's always something that we suggest, obviously, that if something is held up in the tank, that if you're using the tank in a travel style situation, where it's holding for a bit, you do want to make sure that they are cleaned out, especially on that black water. If you are using it for true black water, you want to make sure that all of that sewage waste, all that number 2, is out of the tank and through the outside. And most of our plumbing, if not all of our plumbing, we have a clean out right there near the discharge, where we can kind of access and get in and clean those kinds of things out. On the freshwater tank, again, that's kind of that calcification thing. You want to make sure that if you're not going to use the tank, if you're connected to city water, that maybe you leave the tank empty, so that it's not doesn't have that stagnant water in the system.
I know I'm just kind of jumping around here, but going back to exterior siding, windows, is that really just checking the caulking around the ceiling or the windows, or?
Yeah, again, windows are important. They're part of that exterior kind of shell. Definitely want to make sure that is checked. Your screens, making sure everything's clean, and 100% checking that caulking kind of around the window trim, depending on the outside use or outside material that was used, is all nice and tight and hasn't had that expansion and contraction to a point where you've got some open caulking joints and things like that.
Is that easy just to recaulk? Or?
Yeah, and typically when our house goes to the owner, they have interior, exterior paint, they have extra flooring, they have caulking that we used on the outside. So they have those samples within the house when the house leaves. and we suggest obviously that stuff stays with the house or in some sort of location where you know where it's going to be. But yeah, that is something that can be done and should be done on a regular basis.
That's all I have for you. Are there any questions?
Are there any different maintenance requirements for the gooseneck versus a bumper tow?
No, I mean, there's maintenance on the hitch itself. It should be greased. You should make sure that your chains on both of them are nice and tight. On a conventional tow, you have an adjustable. On our trailers, you have an adjustable hitch. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that the bolts on that adjustment are snug and properly tightened. Same thing with the gooseneck. You do have, typically on our goosenecks, we have an adjustable pin location, so you can make sure that that's tightened. As far as trailer brakes, there's a electrical system on there that you want to make sure is in place and the battery's properly charged for the emergency trailer brake. If for some reason the trailer comes off the truck, there is an emergency brake system on there. So you want to make sure that those items are in place and properly seated. You can always grease the hitch itself to make sure that it comes on and off of the ball as it should whenever you get to the location. Jacks on the outside of the house, we use a standard wine jack that swivels on the corners. Those you just want to make sure they have a little grease fitting. You will want to make sure that those are greased in that same kind of probably every 6 months to a year if you are traveling. If the home is staying in place for an extended period of time, that jack's not really being used, so that grease should be fine within the gears in that system. But if you're traveling quite a bit, you want to make sure that those are properly greased. As far as parking with your home, those jacks are your stationary kind of setting, so that would be considered part of maintenance on the outside, is making sure that you haven't had any settling. If you are on not a secure kind of concrete pad, you're going to want to make sure that those haven't settled and that your house has kind of come out of level or started to settle to one side. So that would be considered part of the maintenance initially, depending on how the home is parked, for sure.
How do you check the level of the house?
So you use a level. So I think that's going to be one of our upcoming sit down with a builder. How to. I think we're going to go over that. It will be done on a concrete pad, but we're going to basically show you how the house comes off of the truck. We always level front to back first. So the house comes off of the tow vehicle. It's typically, in that case, pitched where the hitch is up higher. It usually needs to come down. So we use the front jack to lower the front to where it's level. We use a 4-foot level to do that. Once the house is level, front to back, you're using that front jack to do that. We then go left to right, passenger side to driver side. And those are where we use those corner jacks for, making sure that the house sits level.
That's all I had today. Do you want to add anything about maintenance?
It's super important. It's not something that should be just looked as I'll get to it or maintenance is
goes wrong.
Don't wait till something goes wrong. Stay ahead of it, especially for your appliances like your mini splits and your hot water heaters and the things that do cost a significant amount of money, let alone your house's cost. But those things have a pretty extended warranty in most cases, and you're going to want to make sure that you're following those guidelines. And biggest suggestion for those that are on the road is check those tires, those lug nuts, and that actual greasing on a regular basis to make sure that you're not going to have help prevent any possible issues while on the road. That's one of the most dangerous things to kind of have happen is have a flat tire or have something that causes you to have to get off of an interstate that's already dangerous while you're in the vehicle, on the road. But it becomes even more dangerous when you're in that emergency lane off the side trying to change a tire. So anything that you can prevent on that possibly happening, we highly suggest.
That's it.
I can't think of anything else. I don't think we've had any other questions. If you have any type of suggestions on this, or you have a question on this afterwards, I believe it'll post in the
IGTV.
in the IGTV, and we can get to those answers later. But we thank you guys. We hope you guys have an amazing holiday. And are we doing it next week too?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do have one next week. So we'll see you post Christmas, and hope everybody has an awesome one. Thank you guys.
Bye.